And what basically qualifying questions are is that these are questions that you should ask to determine if the prospect is a good prospect. And I want to just kind of start out with a metaphor here, which is, and it kind of has to do with this image here, that this image is basically sticking a litmus test into a cup of water. And I'm going to get a little technical in this example, but I'm going somewhere with it, so bear with me. But like, you can stick a litmus test in like a glass of water to test the pH level. And I've done a little bit of research on this, and I'll try to communicate this as though you have no knowledge of this. But and like I said, I'm going to connect all this to selling, which is the thing is that a reason why you might want to know how much acidity or how high the pH level is in a glass of water is, one reason is you might want to try to be drinking water with a low level of acidity, because maybe you have acid reflux. And if you have acid reflux and you drink water with a high pH, that could trigger your symptoms of acid reflux, right? So one way to decrease issues is to test the water by sticking an indicator in it, and it'll either tell you whether it's low pH or high pH, and then you can make an informed decision if you want to drink that water. Why I'm outlining that metaphor is that what basically happens in the world of sales is that is the equivalent to someone with acid reflux just drinking water without really knowing what's in it in terms of the pH level. And what happens is sometimes they might have symptoms of not feeling well, and sometimes they're fine. And connecting that to selling is that we don't usually test our prospects enough, and we just try to sell to them. And what happens is that we end up selling to prospects that are not good. And there's a reason why we shouldn't do that. And the asking qualifying questions is the equivalence of sticking a litmus test in the water. The litmus test in the water says this is how good or bad the water is. The qualifying questions that you ask your prospects will tell you, if you ask the right ones, how good or bad the prospect is. And the reason why you want to do that and why it's really important is because time is limited. There's only so many. If you're a salesperson, you have a quota. You have an annual quota, a quarterly quota, monthly quota, weekly quota, daily quota, if you want to break it down. And you only have so many hours in the day and so many hours in the week. So you have to get the most out of this time. So if you are able to minimize the time you spend with bad prospects and maximize the time you spend with good, then you should sell more. And that should be something you agree with, and it's not a revolutionary concept. The problem is that we just try to sell to everybody, and any prospect that'll take an appointment, we go meet with them. And that's not basically, without having information, that's drinking the water without knowing whether it is the type of water you should be drinking. Asking good questions might prevent you from spending time with bad prospects. And it really comes down to opportunity cost. You can only spend your time on the phone with one prospect. You can only present to one prospect. You can only work on one thing at a time. So when you choose to work on one thing, you're taking away from working on another. Let me give you an extreme example. If you receive an RFP that will require you to spend 2 days creating a proposal, and you choose to do that, then you're taking away 2 days from finding leads. And if that proposal, the RFP, is not for a qualified lead, then even knowing you don't have other proposals to respond to, it would be better to spend that 2 days trying to find better quality leads. So it's an opportunity cost. So if you can improve your decision of, I'm going to invest time with this prospect and I'm going to walk away from this prospect, you can make the most out of the time you have. So that's the purpose of qualifying questions. It's one of the purposes. So one purpose is to determine which prospects you should spend your time with. Another purpose is that you can also extract very valuable information from the prospect that you can use throughout the sales process. By the way, the examples that I gave you of my manager asking if I had asked those questions, those were qualifying questions. I'm going to show you those and the others that should surround those here in a minute. But I could just give you a long list of qualifying. These are questions you should ask to qualify. But one way to kind of make it easier for you to digest or easier for you to think about when you're working in real time is to break down areas to look to see if the prospect is qualified. And I've organized them into 4 areas. So does the prospect need to purchase what you have? And I'm going to use another example for us to kind of get our hands around these concepts. Need to purchase. So let's just say we sell cars, right? And it's a Sunday afternoon and we're a salesperson and someone walks onto the dealership. Now, we can spend 2 hours with this prospect driving them around, but there's other prospects walking onto the dealership. So we need to determine, do we invest time with this person that just walked on, or do we kind of answer their questions and make sure they have what they need so that we can keep ourselves available for more qualified prospects? Well, one thing that we can look at with this prospect that's just walking up is, do they need to purchase a car? A good example of that might be, maybe they're interested in having a new car, but maybe the car they use works just fine. So they're maybe just, you've heard the term kicking tires. That's where that comes from. They're just killing time on a Sunday afternoon. So do they need to purchase? And I'll show you some questions that help you to kind of figure that out without really just asking someone, do you need to purchase a car today? Does that person have the authority to purchase? So getting back to purchasing cars, maybe it's a gentleman that walks on the dealership, but maybe it's his wife that is actually the person that's going to say yes, no. So we could have this great conversation with this gentleman, take him on a test drive and get to a price that's right, but maybe at the end of the day, he's not the person who really pulls the strings with the wallet. So he doesn't have the authority to purchase. That's something very important to understand. Does he have the ability to purchase? So maybe he needs a car, he is the decision maker, but maybe he doesn't have a job. Maybe his car's breaking down, so he definitely needs one. He's the one who decides everything, but he doesn't have a source of income, so he's not able to get financing, so he doesn't have the ability to purchase. And this is a key one, which is the intent to purchase. So does he intend, or she intend, to purchase from you? It's not necessarily to make the purchase. It's, do they intend to purchase from you? Let me give you an example. Staying with the car example, this gentleman might check all of the first 3 boxes, right? And then and you might ask questions, and you might think, this is a great guy, I'm going to sell this guy a car. But the reality is that he spent the whole last weekend already shopping for cars, and he just came onto your dealership to do some price comparison, and he already has a relationship because he's with someone else, and so he intends to purchase, but he has very little intent to purchase from you, which means he's not qualified. And let me connect that to the world of B2B sales. So you might get an RFP from someone, and if you asked them most of these questions in these categories, they would all be great. They need something, they're going to purchase, the decision makers involved, it's funded, okay? But what you might not find out, which might be the reality, is that they've been working on this project for 3 months, and they've been engaged with your competitor for 3 months, and the competitor actually helped to write the proposal. But if you don't ask the right questions, you might not become aware of that. And you'd think this is a layup, they're doing something that's funded, and you spend 2 weeks putting together a proposal and a presentation, and what you didn't find out is that they were qualified in most areas, but they didn't have the intent to purchase from you. So those are 4 things. If you want to kind of break it down, that's 4 things to think about when you're talking to someone, and I'll give you questions for each category. So for the need to purchase, I'll just kind of fly through some of these. We might not have time to discuss every single question, but you can certainly have these and use these after this. These questions are designed to say, is this person kicking tires and killing time while his wife's getting her hair cut around the corner, or does this person just genuinely need what we have to sell? So what motivated you to come in? What brought you to us? What are you doing today in this area? So like relating that to cars, I assume you have a car today, okay? How old is your car? What if he says my car is 6 months old? Well, in most cases, people don't replace cars that are 6 months old, so that could tell you this guy doesn't really need anything. He's just sort of killing time. What's working well for you today? What's not? Regarding what they're using today. What would it mean to you if you were to make this purchase? So you're trying to identify would things get better? Would things change? Another thing to identify is what happens if they don't make a purchase. So will there be any challenges for you if you don't purchase something in this area or don't purchase what we're talking about here today? So the thing there is that if things are okay, whether they purchase from you or not, then they might not need it. Like, let's say that someone's using some sort of payroll software, right? And they're talking to you and you sell like the state-of-the-art payroll system. But their current system is old, but it processes everything. It works okay. They're able to do payroll. They're able to get their reports. So things are okay. I mean, can you improve it? Sure. So if you were to ask them, hey, listen, I mean, you have the system today. What if you just kept using that for another 5 years? What does that look like? I mean, are there any problems that come from that? Now, they might tell you, yeah, I mean, the system we use isn't supported. So if something serious happens, we are completely screwed. So that's good. Or they might say, nah, I mean, it's okay. It would be fine. We need to improve. We need to update, change over at some point, but no major problems. Then that's a concern. So those are some other questions. Is there a date you need to purchase by? What happens if you don't purchase by that date? So trying to find a compelling event. What's the time frame that you need to work along? So let's look at the next category, authority to purchase. So we're trying to identify, are you the person who's going to make the call, right? Or is it your wife? So instead of asking someone, are you the person who makes the call? Here are some more diplomatic ways to go about that. What is the decision-making process? That's a great way to kind of figure out, especially if you're selling B2B and you might be selling to someone that has like a manager title, maybe they even have a director level job. But and they have an ego, so you don't want to either challenge their ego by saying, are you the decision maker? But they also actually might think that they are the decision maker, but the reality is that they're not. So ask them what the decision-making process is, because certainly they might think, okay, yeah, I'm going to make the decision, but what happens after that? When they make the decision, what happens? Who signs the contract? Or what does it have to go through a committee or whatnot? What parties will be involved in the making of the decision? What functional areas are impacted? Who's the ultimate decision maker? Who's the person that signs the contract? Ability to purchase, so this gets towards funding. So instead of just saying, do you have money to spend? Here are some diplomatic ways to go about that. Is there budget approved for this project? What's the budget range that the project needs to fit in? So that's a great way to kind of feel the person out. Instead of saying, what are you looking to spend, or asking them how much money do you have to spend? Ask them, what's the budget range that you need to stay within? And believe it or not, even though you're kind of basically saying how much money do you have to spend, when you ask it in that way, people just kind of answer it. It's almost like a little Jedi mind trick. You try it out. It's kind of interesting. And people just say, well, the range is 50 to 75,000. They'll just tell you. Whereas if you said, how much money do you have to spend on this, they would say, well, how much depends how much it costs. Have funds been allocated to this? What budget will this purchase be made under? Are there any other purchases impacting this? So moving on, intent to purchase. These are, again, this is that area that it's easy to forget. And here are questions that get to you identifying what the heck's going on here, right? Like, is someone stringing you along, or are they genuinely interested in you? Kind of like in the dating world, is someone playing you, or do they genuinely want, are they genuinely interested in a relationship with you? So here's some questions, and some of them don't really directly ask, do you intend to purchase from me? But you're likely busy, so why did you take time out of your schedule to meet with us? Do you recall what originally motivated you to reach out to us? What other options are you considering? How far along are you with them? How do you feel about their solution? What do you like about their solution, or what do you don't like? How does their solution compare to us? Is there a reason why you would choose us over them? If you had to make a decision today, which way would you lean? And so those are really good questions, if I do say so myself. sometimes they won't answer those questions. None of the questions I'm showing you here today are going to offend anyone. Let's go back to the discussion of price or budget or even authority. A salesperson could think that they're scared to ask, to find out what's going on with that. These are very diplomatic ways of asking these questions. None of these questions should offend anybody. So those are qualifying questions.